Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. Our Condo on Wheels, story of a couple RVing by Diane Lenamon, shares what it's like to travel with someone you truly love. This is her story about RVing. She kept a journal as she traveled with her husband for 8.5 years. Diane is a writer and artist, born and raised near Savannah, Georgia, now living in Texas near the Fort Worth area, working in finance. She retired in 2002. She lost her first husband to diabetes. Diane has 5 children, 10 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. She remarried and they traveled together for 8.5 years in their RV. She loves to write about life, also loves to watercolor paint. She has written several other books as well. Diane has been recognized for her book, Our Condo on Wheels, in the New York Times, LA Times, and Mad Magazine. Diane Lenamon, author of Our Condo on Wheels, Story of a Couple RVing, joins us on This Week in America. Diane, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on.
Really enjoyed the book, and there's so much more than RVing here, isn't it? It's a real story about you, about life, about love, about sharing limited space with somebody else for 8.5 years, and RVing as well. It's an excellent book. Where did the motivation come to write this book?
Well, I always have been interested in writing, and I felt that I had so much material gathered while we were traveling that I might as well put a book to it, which I did. And my husband didn't think too much about it, but he went along with me. And he asked me, he says, "Where did you get all this information?" And I said, "Well, every time we went somewhere, or I'd pick up a pamphlet or information on it." And he said, "Well, where'd you keep it in the RV?" And I said, "In a drawer underneath the table." He said, "Oh, okay."
He had no idea 8.5 years was going to turn into a book that's doing so well and receiving excellent reviews. The book is Our Condo on Wheels. That is Diane's website, ourcondoonwheels.com. Get information there, and you can order the book, available at Amazon, all of the usual places. At what point did it dawn on you, boy, we've got some really good stories to tell here? Was there a point when you thought, I do need to start picking up these pamphlets as we're going places and keep a journal of what we're seeing and what we're experiencing on the road? Was there a moment when you thought it sort of clicked? I like writing. I like traveling. I've got great stories to tell here.
Well, we saw a lot of history, and I felt like sharing that with other people would be great, especially children, because there's not very many people that do make it to Alaska or Canada or Quebec.
It's so amazing, and we really feel, because of your writing style, like we're there with you through these the 8.5 years and what you went through. Did you have, when you started this journey, did you have any idea it was going to be 8.5 years? And did you have really any map laid out where you would want to go, or was there a lot of spontaneity to the travels?
We always planned where we wanted to go and what we wanted to see. We also had a tabletop book on all the parks in the U.S., and that was very interesting. So we use that a lot.
No, it's interesting, your life. In the beginning, you talked about an incident that you said the doors were opening for a new life, and that's where this all began. And then the RV came in, the motor coach, and then you traveled. Talk a little bit about that, how this all came about in meeting your husband, what you shared, and led to 8.5 years traveling in the RV.
Well, I was out in California visiting my grandsons, and I had to meet the plane the next day, and my son-in-law was kind of dragging his feet to take me, and we got there just in time. And when I got to the airport and went to go board the plane, the stewardess, she was closing the door, and I said, "Oh, wait a minute, don't do that." And she said, "Okay." So she let me on, and when I got on the plane, there was this gentleman sitting in my seat, and I said, "Sir, I believe you have the wrong seat." He said, no, the flight attendant put me here. I said, oh, okay. So she came aboard back there and she said, can I help y'all? And I explained to her what was going on. So he had to move across the aisle. But during that time, he talked to me the whole time. And I was planning to sit there and read a book. And so before the plane landed, he wanted to know if he could call me sometime. He had a daughter who lived in Fort Worth. And I said, well, I work most of the time. I'll give you my business card. He said, that'll do. So I gave it to him. And a few days later, he called me and he said, I'm going to be in town. Can I meet you for dinner? And I said, um, that'll be all right. I'll meet you. And he said, no, I'll come by and pick you up. And I said, well, sir, all right. So I work with 5 engineers. And I told one of them, I said, when you see him pick me up, you take the license plate numbers off that car. He said, I'll be right there. Don't worry.
That's such an interesting beginning. It was not right in the beginning where you found an attachment. It took a little while, didn't it?
It did, because I wasn't ready. I wasn't
Yes.
looking for anyone. I had a very good job with BAE, which is affiliated with Lockheed Martin, and I enjoyed my work very much. But the thing that won me over with my husband was 9/11. He saw what happened and he called me at work and he said, where are you? And are you in the building? And I said, yes, I am. And he says, and I said, Washington just called and we have to evacuate. And he said, well, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to go to the grocery store because I don't have much food in the house. And then I'm going to go home. He said, would you please call me when you get home? And I said, yes, I will. And I thought that was so thoughtful of him.
And out of that came this love of travel. The end result of that is Diane's book, Our Condo on Wheels, Story of a Couple RVing. Did you share this? When did you found out that we both enjoyed travel and enjoyed travel? We're going to try it in an RV. It's a little bit different than hopping on an airplane and flying somewhere and staying at a Marriott. It's a little bit different. When did you find that you both had an interest in doing this?
He had said he wanted to travel in an RV, and after he retired from his job. And he said, well, didn't your first wife want to travel? And he said, oh, no. She was a five-star hotel person. And I said, well, that's nice, but I always wanted to travel myself. And he found that very interesting. And so anyway, he called me one weekend and he said, would you come next weekend? I want to show you something. And he was living in Horseshoe Bay. And I said, all right. And so I went to visit him and he said, I'm going to take you over to look at some things. And I said, oh, what is that? And he said, well, you'll be surprised. So he took me over to a little town that have a real huge area of RVs. And I said, what are we doing here? And he said, I want you to look at some RVs. And I said, oh, are you going to take off and go travel? And he said, well, I want you to look at it too. So we started traveling. We started going in one after another. So finally, I said, well, which one do you like? He said, oh, I like all of them. And I said, well, I think you better make up your mind then. So we went back to his place and he said, would you retire from your work? And I said, what are you getting at? And he said, would you retire from your work and we would be a couple and go RVing? And I said, I don't know about that. And he said, well, think about it. So I went back home to Fort Worth and he called me and he said, well, did you think about it? And I said, yeah, all the way home. anyway, it came down. That was in. It came down in January, and then in February, my birthday. He said, "When you get off work, will you come over to my daughter's house?" I said, "All right." So I thought maybe he was going to have a birthday cake or something for me. And I drove over there to his daughter's, and there sat a 40-foot motor coach.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my gosh. And so he said, "Happy birthday." I said, "Oh my Lord." He said, "No, it's going to be ours." And he said, "I just want you to like it and enjoy it and go with me." And I said, "Well, that's a lot to behold right now." So anyway, over the months, we RV'd a little bit just on the weekends, and then finally he wanted to know if I would retire and be married. And I said, "Well, that's a lot to take in. Let me think more about it."
Well, and the end result is our Condo on Wheels, story of a couple RVing 8.5 years. Diane Lenamon is the author of the book. That's Lenamon if you're Googling. Her website is ourcondoonwheels.com. Book available Amazon, wherever books are sold. Let's talk a little bit about maybe those early days out there. You mentioned you really have to truly love the person you are traveling with. Talk about that. You probably learned a lot about yourself, about him as well, and about your relationship.
It was really wonderful because you just don't put two people in a can and expect a good relationship.
Exactly, yes.
And so we did really well, and we met so many wonderful people, and we joined 2 RV clubs, and each 6 months we would all get together somewhere in Texas, Louisiana, surrounding areas, and we'd have a really wonderful 4 days together. And the funny thing about it is we were parked in an RV park one time, and this lady came up to me and she said, "I understand you stay in your RV a lot." And I said, "Yes, I do." And she said, "Do you cook in it?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "Do you shower and all in it?" I said, "Well, yes, ma'am, it's my home." And she said, "You really do that?" I said, "Well, ma'am, let me ask you a question. Do you cook in yours? Do you shower in it?" "Oh, no, no, no. We go out to eat." And I said, "Well, you do have to go to the restroom, don't you?" She said, "Well, we go down to the service station."
Oh, geez.
And I thought, why in this heaven would she even have a motor coach?
Yes. There's so many great stories in Diane's book, Our Condo on Wheels, story of a couple RVing. And reading the reviews, so many people say, one of the messages that Diane has is get out and enjoy yourself. Is that one of the takeaways you hope that we get from reading the book? That, boy, we all fantasize about doing something, but most of us never act on that. You did, and you enjoyed it so much. 8.5 years, you've written the book about it. Is that one of the takeaways you would like us to have?
Yes. Life is full of surprises, full of blessings, and you need to accept them and get out there.
And you've been able to do that and do it so well. What a wonderful 8.5 year experience. You said, and I truly feel the Lord put us together to be able to do our travels together. I'm a firm believer in living in faith. And talk about that aspect, which comes out in the book, Our Condo on Wheels, as well. Faith has always been an important part of your life, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Having 5 children and nursing my first husband for 9.5 years with diabetes. It was very, very hard, but the Lord got me through it. And whatever I do, I go to Him first.
Well, that's one of the messages as well in the book that is so well written, Our Condo on Wheels by Diane Lenamon. If you're Googling, that's Lenamon. Her book is our Condo on Wheels. That's her website, too, so you can remember that very easily, our CONDOOnWheels.com. Book available at Amazon, all of the usual places. It's fascinating, your love of history. And, boy, if you had some place you wanted to go to, you could just hop in the RV and go there. How much fun was that, visiting all these historic places that most of us think, someday I'd like to do that. You've been able to accomplish that. How much fun was that? And then sharing all of that with your family.
It was really wonderful because back in 2000, I did a marathon in Alaska, and I never thought I would be going back there in an RV. And it was just a blessing to be able to go back there and go back where I did the marathon. And you meet so many interesting people on the road. And one thing about going to Alaska, you do not go to Alaska until the end of May, and you leave there by the end of September because they're doing road work. And when we got through and got to Canada, our car looked like a Dominator. It was pitiful. It looked like it needed a new car.
Wow.
Because they're repairing all the roads, and all that rock is hitting the RV and the cars. So we learned our lesson about that.
I was going to ask about that when you mentioned Alaska. I've heard so many horror stories where people go up there, and it's not just like hopping on an interstate here in Texas and going across state, is it? It's a whole different world up there.
Oh, it's wonderful, and it's so many wildlife things up there. You're stopping all the time because you're seeing a mother with her 3 cubs, or you're seeing a baby moose. You know, you just want to go out there and hug them all, but you can't.
So many great stories in Diane's book, Our Condo on Wheels, Story of a Couple RVing. A few minutes left in the program. Talk a little bit about some of the surprises, those that were pleasant surprises, maybe the wildlife in Alaska that you got to see firsthand up close because you were traveling in their territory out there, or some of the surprises that weren't that pleasant that you realized the hard way. What were some of the surprises you encountered during your 8.5 years?
We were out walking one day, and I always had a bell on my walking stick. They say that if you have a bell, that kind of scares the bears away. And so I saw a small baby cub, and he ran across my path, and I thought, oh my gosh, the mama bear's going to be around here somewhere. So anyway, I kept watching and watching, but I kept ringing that bell, and I never saw her.
So it was good to have that there. That would be a surprise. You don't mind looking at them from the safety of your RV, but when you're out, walking and run into that, would you do it again?
Oh yes, definitely. I would. I would. We were in a camping park in Colorado. Yeah, it was in Creed, Colorado. And I had put out a hummingbird feeder when we set up everything outside. And one morning I got up and I went out there, and everything was gone out of the feeder. And so my husband came out and he says, what's going on? And I said, well, something took down the feeder and drank all the liquid. And he said, oh, maybe it just fell, the wind and all. I said, no, I don't know about that. So anyway, I redid it, put it back out. Next morning, went out there, gone again. So I decided to take some trash down to the dumpster, and I got down there, and there was a note from the office. Please beware of bear in the evening. Well, he drank all that juice.
So the bear very hospitable, made himself at home, and enjoyed what you'd left out for him that day. There's so many great stories in the book. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but fortunately, the book's in print, and you can go buy your own copy and enjoy that, sort of relive the 8.5 years and all the great stories and memories that Diane has in the book, CONDOonwheels.com. I mentioned you've written other books as well. Are you working on something now? Will there be another book you'll have published here soon?
I'm working on a book. I started another book, but then the one I'd already written, I'm merging them. It's about, I turned 60 years old, and my mom came to visit me from Savannah, and I was in Jacksonville, Florida with my first husband. And I found out that I had 3 siblings I knew nothing about. And I questioned my mom about it, and my dad never spoke about it, and I only saw him once in my whole life. And it happened that my dad's cousin put my sister and 2 brothers together. And we love each other very much, and they live in Florida.
What a fascinating story. So that's a book you're working on now?
Yes, yes.
Well,
me and my 3 siblings.
I hope we get a chance to talk about that as well. You are a very talented writer. I love what you've done. The book is excellent. Our Condo on Wheels, Story of a Couple RVing. Diane Lenamon, our guest on the program, Lenamon. The book, Our Condo on Wheels, website very simple, ourcondoonwheels.com. Book available at Amazon, all the usual places. Diane, thank you so much for being with us on the program. Loved reliving some of those stories from the 8.5 years on the road. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Our guest on the program, Diane Lenamon, the book, Our Condo on Wheels. You'll find the information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back on today's program after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.